Anger. I think it's an emotion we all struggle with, especially when you're younger and you're just trying to figure out what the world is even about. It's easy to find yourself lashing out at things and people you don't even know, or concepts you can't even really fully grasp. I think no matter what your gender identity is, anger definitely does play a big role in how you think about anger depending on how you were socialized. As a man or someone who presents more masculine, sometimes you don't want to embrace your anger because you don't want to come off as abusive, or you don't want to seem scary to other people. As opposed to someone who is more femme presenting, you maybe don't want to express your anger because you may feel it would not be feminine, or you wouldn't be pleasant to be around. You'd be the nagging Karen. Perception of it is, if you're angry black female, well, we all know, right? Like, if you're angry black female, that means that you're crazy, you are unstable, you're just a mess, right? No one wants to be around you. I think most of us who struggle with anger, in fact, it kind of starts in childhood, well before we start to learn the social norms. Most of us saw anger presented at us through our guardians when they were frustrated at us for doing something we shouldn't have, or saying something that we shouldn't have said when we were children. Us linked anger to abuse. And that person was angry in your household, that meant that you were going to get hurt somehow. Maybe the repercussions were emotional, maybe they were physical. And you didn't know, but you knew somehow, some way, that frustration was going to land on you, right? That was definitely the case for me. I didn't embrace anger for a very long time because of all of these complicated factors. This isn't necessarily a video about controlling your anger, but more so how to express it in way of controlling it, and sort of trying to explore why you may need to control your anger, especially if it's explosive. Maybe to some of you this might be obvious, but when you internalize certain emotions, memories, thoughts, it all comes leaking out at the end. Some of us try to cope with anger by drinking, doing other drugs, going for runs, just trying to exert all that emotion and energy out into something that's not our loved ones. We are triggered so easily by the most randomly seeming things, and then we take out our frustration so randomly. Honestly, it's not random. I wholeheartedly believe anger is your body's way of telling you that something is wrong. Most negative emotions are your body and your mind alerting you to something being off. Unfortunately, for many of us, we cannot really grasp in the moment why we feel the way we feel. And so we focus a lot on the immediate thing, which is the feeling, and needing to get it out of our body. So that's why we lash out, right? The thing about trauma, it will always shape you no matter how much you want to distance yourself from them. I don't know how many of you are familiar, but I always think about ink blots when I think about emotions. If you're not familiar with what ink blots are, essentially they're just a therapist might show you a seemingly random splotches of ink on a piece of paper, and they're going to, the therapist will ask you, well, what do you see when you look at this image? And many of us have seen this in movies, mostly movies and TV shows. Most normal people, quote unquote, when they look at a random splotches of ink, they just see it for what it is, which is random splotches of ink. They usually don't see anything. But for the traumatized mind, a lot of people might see a mother holding their child, or if they're a war vet, they see their comrades, limbs being blown up or scattered across a battlefield. It really depends on the person. Things love to make patterns of things. And when we look at something, we just automatically just project ourselves onto it. We're like walking, talking mirrors. I think if you truly want to understand your anger, just like most things, you have to understand yourself. I think just trying to control your anger in manners of just exerting it and not exploring it is kind of pointless. Kind of like putting very small lid on a pressure cooker. Eventually the contents of the lid when it's cooking is going to spill over because the lid can't contain what's inside of it. To like release your anger on a daily basis. Like every morning you have to get up and run, otherwise for the most part you won't be okay handling your anger, right? Because it's kind of like a token you have to spend in order to not like lash out at anyone. Since that morning you don't run or you can't run, what if you get into an accident or your ankle twists and you can't run for several weeks? It's a what if scenario, but ultimately life does happen and gets in the way of us doing things. Running is bad. Obviously running and jogging and biking is all good for you mentally. But in my opinion, if you have to do an activity every single day in order to be a person that's pleasant to be around and somebody who won't abuse the people around them, then that's not a healthy thing at all. That's just putting a band-aid over a gaping wound. For me, as a kid who was very meek and quiet, anger didn't seem like something that I'd ever present or express ever. As I got older, I definitely realized in random spouts I would just get angry. I would feel this buzzing in my brain, and then all of a sudden my throat would close up and my chest would feel like it was on fire. Then I would speak and all of a sudden I'm yelling. And the more that I spoke of anger in my body would also decrease. And I think this is the case for most people when they get angry, like that physical feeling of like, yeah, I need to let this out of my body and this feels good right now. Like you're probably not even thinking that. It feels automatic, but I think the best way to understand that this process is watching someone else be angry. You can always really tell like what someone is going through most times, unless they're very good at masking, by their body language and their facial expressions. Even the things they might do. If you're really in tune with a person, you can even just feel the air shifting around them when they get angry or they're triggered by something. Watching other people, especially as a child, for me, because I was so meek and so quiet, most of the times I was just observing people and what they did and what they said and trying to find patterns in which the people who hurt me, I was always trying to figure out, well, if I did this, then it wouldn't happen. I wouldn't get hurt today because I did the right things. And it's a 50-50 chance because the anger isn't about you. It's never about the other person. But this is anger in its most hurtful and negative form. I've learned that anger can be used in positive ways. Once you realize like what triggers you and makes you angry, and you've sort of started the process of dealing with that and accepting the reasons why, you find yourself becoming less angry. Things that bothered you before seem a bit trivial at times, or honestly even funny. Now when I get angry, I definitely try to use it as, the canary singing in the coal mines. Usually if I'm angry about something now, it's because I feel trapped in my situation. Sometimes I might get angry about the state of the world, about politics, but it's never explosive, and I never feel the need to take actions which would hurt others, which I think is the most important thing. I'm not saying though that you won't get angry once you reflect on the origins of your anger, that you won't ever get angry ever again, and not lash out at somebody. We're human beings at the end of the day, and just because you've accepted and forgiven someone for making you feel a certain way, or altering your mind in such a sense that now you're triggered about certain things, it doesn't erase the fact that it happened. I do think it's like possible to recover from most types of trauma, but even still, we're human beings. There's always going to be pieces of residue that lie within our psyche. I think also the thing we need to understand is that apologizing is key. And I mean really apologizing. I don't mean just a throwaway sorry. If I ever get into an argument with my partner and I start to get angry and I might say something I don't mean, I try to physically remove myself from the room if I can. Maybe excuse myself to go to the bathroom, or say something like, I just need some time to cool off, just give me a second. And I try to recenter and try to sort out that feeling of anger, like kind of like using a comb over sand, like trying to find the kernels of like what triggered that emotion out of me. I can go back and say to my partner, well, I was angry because you said this and it made me feel that, therefore this is why I lashed out. Which is way more helpful than a band-aid of I am sorry and I won't do this again. Because at least in this instance, the person who you did lash out at can say, okay, I understand. It wasn't me, but something that I said to trigger something else inside of you. And they won't necessarily feel responsible, or that they have to walk around like they have to walk on eggshells around you. As far as society, being angry at society and being angry at the world, that's also very tricky too, because if it's something you can control or you can't control. However, if I feel so strongly about those issues, I can join some local government thing, or find a space and time to vent my frustrations to my friends or to other people who will listen. For me, I really love exploring my negative emotions through art. Mostly I do this with depression, but with anger, I've noticed that if I'm angry about something, my art definitely tends to look very different. I used to use it to motivate me to do physical things before. Like, I would exercise, or I would pick up a lot of shifts at work, or just run myself ragged. Unfortunately, as much as it like helped me get to a better spot in life with using my anger to motivate myself, I definitely think I used anger and sometimes my situation prior to being like, I need to show them, like I need to prove to whoever and whatever that I'm angry at, that I'm better or whatever. That was like my trigger for a long time, was not feeling like, and still is, like I had said prior, like, but more so like very specific, like very like certain people, when I thought of them, would make me angry, or certain things that person did or said, it would make me angry. And I would always keep that person in my head to motivate me to do things that I thought were at the long run gonna be helpful for me. Like I said, like picking up, when I used to work retail, I would pick up a lot of shifts at work, and when I felt tired, I would think of that person, and it would keep me going to want to do more, to make more money, so I can, one day show them, Unfortunately, I think it did way more damage to me physically than anything. Like, running myself ragged in retail was not good in the long run, and I'm so glad that at some point I've realized that just running around and trying to exhaust myself physically was not good. There's a lot of good in stillness and realizing that if you run yourself ragged, whether it's to prove someone wrong or for the sake of hustling, your body will pay the price for that, and sometimes your psyche will too. Because nothing lasts forever. Sometimes life will make you stop, and then you will have to stop hustling. You'll have to stop moving around so much, and then you'll realize, shit, I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so angry still, and I don't know what to do with that anger. I'm trying to be as vague as possible because ultimately it's up to you what you decide to do as far as how to deal with that anger. I can only give examples of my own and what I have done. For me, I was a victim of people's anger, and I said I would never be an angry person, and I turned out to be an angry person. And then once I reflected on it, I started using my anger to sort of propel me into hustle, but then I realized I was burning myself out. And now I'm in a really good place where, I'm not perfect, and I still get angry in a negative way, but I understand it, and I feel way more stable, which I think is the ultimate goal, is to feel more balanced in your life. You're at a completely different stage. Whatever stage you're in, that's fine. I think the key is just accepting and understanding, no matter what the emotion comes from you. And I think a lot of people get caught up in demonizing themselves and making themselves the bad guy, when in turn you're just a person just like anybody else, And the amazing thing about that is that there's been hundreds, thousands, millions of people that have come before you and have had the same problems that you've had, and somehow they solved them. There isn't some, beast that you have to control and wrangle and keep in a cage. You can tame it and you can walk with it. Ultimately, I think that's what I want for anyone who's listening and struggling with anger, is to realize that you don't have to get rid of it completely. It's impossible to get rid of it completely. But like I said, you can walk with it. You can own it in a way.